Morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 137 in the book of Genesis. We do this every day, so come back tomorrow. We're going to look at Jacob here. He's now called Israel, and we find that he starts with desperate prayer, and now he's having a courage to put himself at peril. He's leading a new nation of Israel. Israel has 16 people in it total, and a new technique, which is by humility and bowing. And I want to talk about something he does today, which is walk with a limp. Kind of the big point is we need to be ready to walk with a limp. Have you ever, met somebody with an injury or a difficulty or a grief, and they seem kind of stuck, like they never have moved on from their injury. So leadership and just life, not just being a leader, is walking with a limp. If you've ever, living your life at church, having a family, being in a relationship, ever going to work, if you've ever done any of those things, you have to walk with a limp. And you see people with limps. So I'm getting this from Genesis chapter 33, verse 24. The man wrestled with him, that turns out to be God here in a second, until the breaking of the day. And when the man saw that he had not prevailed against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint when he wrestled with them. Then he blesses them and gives them a new name, then down to verse 30. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen the face of God, and yet my life has been delivered." The sun rose up upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. So contact with God in so many ways ends in a limp. It's a realization that I'm not okay. I'm not the creator. I'm not the sovereign. I don't have a remedy for sin. I don't have power to conquer death. And I'm going to need some dethroning of myself as he peels me off my pedestal of pride, kicking and screaming. So contact with God leaves you limping. Contact with other humans leaves you limping. You've probably had imperfect parents, imperfect siblings, imperfect people you've dated, imperfect spouse, imperfect children, imperfect bosses, imperfect pastors, imperfect small group leaders. All along, there's likely been some violations against yourself and hurts. Then there's the thing about, you know that you've committed trespass against others, and that hurts, and perhaps you have been a disappointment to those around you. Or perhaps you've had injury and death surround you. That's a limp. So one of the things I'm advocating today is not getting stuck on our limps. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I am not saying denying any of these things. I'm saying, oh Lord, we need your help with these disappointments, with the scars, with the limps of life. If he is not our healer here, we are going to be lost. So the thing is that Jesus knows that we are people of disappointment. God knew it with Adam and Eve in the garden. And it wasn't a surprise to him then. He knows that we are people of iniquity. He knows we are people of trespass. He knows that we are people hurting and being hurted. And Jesus knows that we are a people of limps. Some who walk nowhere and get stuck in their limps, and others who walk on, which is what I'm going to advocate here. All right, so I think it's clear that you and me are people with limps. The question is, what are you doing with it? Are you stuck at limp? Are you stuck at injury? Are you stuck at previous hurt, previous disappointment, at loss, or maybe at your own failure? Or then are you foisting it upon others? Are you making sure to injure everyone around you because you hurt? So hurting people hurt other people without the formal decision not to. So are you walking with a limp? Are you moving forward? That's the big question today. Are you working towards forgiveness? So are you giving grace where it is not due? Because isn't that the definition of grace? And isn't that what was given to you and to me? Isn't that what is required to get us into heaven, is the grace of God to come help us? So the question I have for us is, do you have enough grace to distribute? And this is impossible without knowing the grace that has been given to you. So the question is, what are we doing with the limps that we have? Nothing? Or are you walking with it? Are you going on? Are you being stuck at limp? So what does Jacob suggest here? A couple of things. I think he acknowledges that we are wounded people. We're not God's, small g there. We're not perfect before him. We're not perfect before each other. That's the reality. So what? So step one, I think realizing that God is gracious to Jacob. So God kindly wrestles with Jacob. He strives with Jacob. But he does so as a loving father, not one that's going to squash him like a bug. He kindly wrestles with him. So the Lord gives grace to Jacob and a whole bunch of other people, giving grace where it's not due. So the Lord is gracious to Adam and Eve. He's gracious to Noah. Those people responded nicely. He's also gracious to Cain and to Laban, that we've seen here in the book of Genesis. So he turns into all those people with grace. They all don't deserve it. They don't all respond to the Lord's kindness, but the Lord responds kindly. So that's keep that in mind, number one. Step two is turn to others, because of what God's done, turn to others with grace that they do not deserve. Be kind to them as they walk with their limps. Help them with their limps. Step three is try to prevent limps. Don't be a limp maker, and try not to, be a distributor of limps to the rest of the world. And then step four is to walk with your limp. The charge today is to master your limp. And it's not so much moving on from your limp, but it's and denying it and saying that never happened, that's not who I am. But it's more moving on with your limp. So incorporating it into your life, embracing it even in some ways. So learn with me, learn with Jacob how to walk with our limps. Thanks for listening.